Joined by Lily Knapp, a public radio reporter in North Carolina, as well as Mo Kelly, a radio talk show host from Los Angeles. Good to have you both. Lily, let me start with you. We've already heard from the president there in North Carolina. Give me a sense of what he will actually see there.
Yeah, I think we expect President Trump to go to Swannanoa on the ground here. After Helene, there's still a lot of damage and debris cleanup that is underway, and he is headed out to some of those sites and to meet with some of those families who still are trying to figure out what their next move is. We still have a lot of folks who are in transitional housing and working with FEMA to try and understand what to do now that their homes have been destroyed.
Yeah. And Morris, talk to me a little bit about what the president will see when he gets to California. And we'll talk about the politics in just a moment, but obviously the need is significant.
Well, my concern is whether he will see everything that he needs to see. If he only sees Pacific Palisades, which is on the west side, it's going to be very limiting and not understand the scope of the damage, which is across demographics and economic strata. So unless the president sees how widespread the damage is, he may not get a clear understanding. But this is something which has devastated the state, I would say, of California and usurped a lot of our resources. And I want the president to understand that first and foremost. You said we'll get to the politics later, but unfortunately the president put the politics first and he put them above the people. I want the people to come first before the politics.
Lily, let me talk to you. Speaking of politics, North Carolina, I mean, that's a state that can swing either direction in the presidential election. But the last three elections, it did go for Trump. Talk to me about what you heard from Trump and how much that influenced what we heard from him there. I mean, one thing that I thought was interesting is he said, look, everyone's talking about California, but I said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, I said that I'm not going to California before I go to North Carolina. What did you hear in terms of the politics of North Carolina?
Yeah, it's been really interesting to hear how this has been such a political issue, getting aid for North Carolina. And, you know, we saw as President Trump was scheduling his visit today, originally there wasn't really a discussion about newly elected Governor Josh Stein, who's a Democrat, coming along, but Stein was there with Trump on the tarmac as they were discussing these issues. And as we heard, you know, President Trump say that. And one of the things that was really interesting, and you've touched on this, the way that he's talking about FEMA, but he was also talking about the states kind of leading that charge. And you know, in our coverage of the legislature, the states have said, North Carolina legislatures have said, we need federal funding, we need federal help with this. And so how that relationship plays out with, you know, Republican lawmakers from this part of the state saying, we need federal funding for this. North Carolina can't fund this alone, will be really interesting as he's discussing, you know, changing the way that FEMA works in some way that we will hear about in coming weeks, it sounds like, to be more direct with aid directly to North Carolina.
Yeah, the theme of it all is quite interesting. Morris, let me ask, I mean, obviously the politics of California are very different. It's a solidly blue state. But as you pointed out, the need in California crosses demographics, it crosses perhaps political ideologies. That said, it is a state where his former opponent, Kamala Harris, is from. He often spars politically with the governor, Gavin Newsom, and it's Senator Adam Schiff. How concerned do you think, and what I love always talking to radio hosts is that you actually get to hear from people, viewers call in, you get a real sort of sense of the pulse. How concerned do you think people are in California that politics, that tension could play into the real need that they have on the ground?
Let me go one step further. Just on my job, I know of at least 10 people who've lost everything, lost their houses and everything inside. So it's very personal for people in California. And it does traverse different ideologies and different demographics, but the concern is real. And yes, the politics are also real. We know that Governor Gavin Newsom most likely is the presumptive front runner for 2028 running for president. So the politics cannot be denied. But there's a contradiction which hasn't been addressed where President Trump Trump has said that he wants states to be more self-reliant and self-sufficient. Well, at the same time, we talked about the infrastructure of North Carolina and California, and that's just not possible. The states do need the federal government to step in times like this. And if the president is going to predicate aid on the politics, then we're going down that proverbial slippier slope, and disasters here on out will probably be worse than what they were without the president intervening.
Morris, let me stick with you for just a moment, because our conversation has focused a lot on whether politics will play a larger role than the real need on the ground here. But speaking of politics, I mean, you could argue that also applies to Gavin Newsom, that a lot of people will be watching your governor to see if he can put politics aside, because it is the people of his state who are hurting right now so much. Talk to me about the expectations for him.
Absolutely, 100%. I said that on my radio show last night, where we're looking at Gavin Newsom, who has previously positioned himself as the anti-Trump, the answer to the Trump administration, and whether he's going to rise above the politics of the moment and demonstrate that he can be an effective leader for justice, not just the state, going forward, if he's going to have any presence on the national stage. Yes, the visuals are very important. Yes, Governor Newsom said that he's going to be there to meet President Trump on the tarmac, but those public remarks are going to be very important to see who is going to be more of the state's person in this moment and be what the state needs, and also send a message for the rest of the country.
Yeah, certainly a lot to watch. Great to have both of you. Mo Kelly, thank you. Lily Knepp, thank you as well.
Thank you.
All right. And coming up in